So thank you everyone for joining us again this evening. I just want to take an opportunity to provide an update to leagues around current status of the FA's technology plans and the new introduction of the player registration portal, also known as the club and competitions portal. I want to take this opportunity because I know there have been a few changes, and it's an opportunity for us to talk about what's been brought in, some of the new functionality, go through a little bit of a demonstration of it, and some of the key troubleshooting that may have come up over the first few weeks. But also very fortunate to be joined this evening by Ash Slaughter, one of the grassroots technology trainers. Apologise if I got your title wrong there, Ash, at the FA, who I'm sure a lot of you know or have had email correspondence with over the last few years, and is a massive resource for us here at Barks and Bucks in supporting us with all of the technology needs and navigating whole game full-time portal and all of the other technology. So I'm going to be passing over to Ash for the first part of the meeting, but then I want to take this opportunity as well, whilst I have everybody here, and with it being April and thoughts beginning to turn towards next season, just take the opportunity to go through the sanctioning process from a technology point of view again, some of the key dates and requirements, touch on some of the processes around rule changes, just because I know that's going through a lot of people's minds at the moment. And then we'll end on a bit of an open forum. If you've got any questions you want to throw at myself or Ash, whether that's around technology, sanctioning, what's happening generally at the moment, and we'll do our best to answer. As I said, having Ash here is a massive benefit for us. He does know pretty much everything when it comes to, not that I'm building up too much, Ash, but when it comes to the FA's systems. So please feel free to pepper him, not me, with a lot of the technical questions, because hopefully he'll be able to help you out on that. With that said, I'm going to pass it over to Ash, and we'll stop sharing this presentation screen and start looking at the competitions portal. Over to you, Ash.
Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Good. I've been cut off twice, so fingers crossed that doesn't happen mid-flow on the demo, but if it does, I should try and rejoin. So nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for giving up more of your time for this evening, and hopefully it will be beneficial having a quick peek at the competitions portal, as well as talking through a little bit about where we're going with technology, what sort of options we've got coming in the future, what different modules are coming, etc. So hopefully many of you have been on some of our training evenings, and I know Alistair's going to mention them again a bit later on. But if you haven't, we will share a recording of the league version as well as the club version with you. And we'll also share with you the knowledge base link, which has got lots of articles to help you with whatever actions you're trying to take from a league perspective. So on screen, we've got the competitions portal. If you haven't yet been in, no need to worry about going through whole game system. You can log in directly at competitions.thefa.com. The reason I say that is going direct through the link saves any burden on whole game and stops slowing it down, so we don't have to bring back that lovely queue system that we had at the beginning of last season. So I'll get that out there nice and early, because that normally comes up. So fingers crossed we will have no queue systems with moving across to the new platform. One of the main features you'll see that's different within the competitions portal is the difference between the all players and the pending actions link. So one of the pieces of feedback we got from leagues, clubs and every user from a player registration perspective was it was quite difficult sometimes to use the filters and move through exactly what you were looking at. So from a league perspective, your all players will give you all of your players in a list that are attached to your competition. But the key piece for you guys is going to be the pending actions link. And as you'll see on here, you'll see 19 pending actions. And these are different things that the league might need to look at, whether it's a pending league registration, which quite a few of these are, if not all of them, and potential transfers, cancellations, etc. So from a simplicity perspective, similarly to the previous system, you can multi-select a number of players. So any that have got pending league registrations, and then you can opt to approve that action. and submit their registration through the system. So you can do that on a bulk basis. So beginning of the season, it will just give you a message. So if you've done 25 players, it will give you a message saying that 25 will go through. And if there are any issues with any of those players, the difference between this system and the previous system is if 24 of 25 can go through, 24 of 25 will process, and it will leave the one there that we can't put through for whatever reason, whether that's because there's a potential transfer or dual registration that it cannot process at the time. So again, instead of blocking everything as the previous system did, and then you have to work out which one it is that needs some attention, it will clear the ones that you need and then leave you with the ones that require a little bit of attention. You'll see down the right hand side of the screen we've got some orange arrows, ins and outs, and these are the ones that signify that we've got a potential transfer or potential dual registration. So it requires you to do something a little bit different. And the player that Alistair's going to click on here, Uncle Albert, when you log in at the top of the screen here, and somebody's just changed the status, so we will try and revert it back to actually formally do the transfer, but you'll see this one says that there's a transfer objection pending, and that the existing registration will be cancelled and the existing club will need to respond. And basically what this is one of the clubs has tried to register a player in the competition. It's gone through the system, and in accordance with the standard code of rules now, it allows the club within the system to put in a transfer objection. So that's what they've done in this case. What you would normally see on the registering for section, where it's got pending league in the middle of the screen there, is you would normally see two buttons, and it will allow you to either check the dual registration or the transfer button, and then effectively approve the transfer for processing. And what I'm going to do, if Alistair doesn't mind, is I'll do a bit of tinkering in the background, and once you've done your sanctioning piece at the end, Alistair, I'll come back to that, because there's 2 or 3 of us using the live data, and law of sod on a live demo, someone's already put that objection through rather than leaving it as a transfer as we had planned. So we'll come back to that at the end. But that's what that orange flag is for. So any of those that you see, you won't just be able to tick and process. You will need to go into the individual player and do some individual actions on those players. So hopefully it makes it nice and easy for you in regards to the ones you need to check a little more closely than others. You'll also see in the request type section there in the middle of the screen that there's different requests. So the one that Alistair's hovering over at the moment is a cancellation request. And what this allows us to do is the clubs now can request a cancellation of a registration, and they can also request a deregistration of a player and give you a reason for that. So something that wasn't permissible in the previous system, but is now, and you'll see on the system when you scroll down to the bottom there, you've got your cancellation reason, and this one is moving to university. So we ask the clubs to pop in a reason, because we're fully aware that what we don't want them to do is cancel a player and then they move to a club down the road, because potentially you'll need that as a transfer in your competition and you'll need to monitor who they've played for. So what Alistair could do here in the top right is you've got the option to either approve or reject. So if you approve it, it goes straight through. You basically just put confirm cancellation, and your other your other option is to reject it. And there might be a reason you object it, in say, actually, no, we're rejecting because we know that they're going to sign for Club X, and therefore we don't want this player to move. You've got some standard options, so should be a transfers top of the list, but if you click on other, you then have the free type box below, so you can type anything you want from a league perspective into that box. So could be requires a transfer but a bit more information, or whatever other reason that you're given as a competition. So that's a new thing, and hopefully will help solve some of the issues we've had previously, where you cancel a player registration, and if they're linked to 3 teams, it cancels it for every team. This will be on a team by team basis, so it makes life a little easier for you. Back on the main screen, you'll see quite a change of information, and the purpose of this is to try and give you as much upfront as possible. So the pending action screen was added really to give as much of an overview as possible to you of the information that you require. So things such as divisions has been quite helpful. We've had a bit of feedback from the leagues that seeing what divisions is quite useful. Certainly if you've got divisional secretaries that are looking at different divisions, that is quite helpful. And obviously you see a lot more on the front screen than you did previously. At the top of the screen, you've got a show filters button just below your pending actions. And this is really important because these are similar filters to what you used to have on whole game system. So if Alistair drops down the status filter, what you'll get automatically on the status filter is pending league. And the purpose for that is you're on the pending actions tab. But if we were to now tick on reject and approved, what it would then do is it would filter through all of your players so far. So we've had 458 pending actions, and you can then scroll down and you'll see that you've got some approved, some rejected, pending league, etc. And if you hover over any of those registration statuses, what it should do is it should give you a little bit of information. And where this is most useful is in the club side of the portal, because a lot of the time clubs will look and they might get different messages. And this is really useful that they can see the status of those players. So if we pop that status back to pending, on the right hand side you've got another set of different parameters, and there have been some suggestions already, and I'll share a link in the chat if I can do it from my phone, because I've joined on my phone tonight because of some PC issues. I'll share a link in the chat, and if not, Alistair will share it with you following this, a link to the knowledge base where we've got some articles around different bits and pieces that the leagues can have a peek at. But most importantly, on the knowledge base, we've got the option under the forum section to actually put forward suggestions and be able to upvote other suggestions that have been put forward. And this is again something that's new, and we found it quite useful because it gives us a good opportunity where a league has suggested, for example, can we have a different filter? It might be that we have 35 other leagues that tick that and say, yes, please, we like that option. And therefore, it just makes life a little easier for us when we're looking at future enhancements. So if you do have any suggestions, as always with a new system, there'll be suggestions, tweaks, etc. Have a peek on that when it's shared with you, and really worth having a look at, and you can see what other people are thinking of suggesting, etc. And I can see Alistair's just popped that in the chat for you, so you've got that to have a peek at afterwards. So a really useful tool to be looking at. Certainly if you've got any suggestions on what you think might be done slightly differently. I see a question's popped in from Louise. Is there a way to see those that are rejected? So what you can do in the status there is you can, in the top left hand corner, you can untick the pending league and just change to rejected. And what that will do is it will give you a list of all of those rejected players. So it will just show you simply all the rejected players from the competition.
I see that now that you've put it in there, but honestly, I cannot get that in mine. And I know that we have rejected some, so maybe it's just a technology glitch.
Yeah, if you don't mind sending in some screenshots, Louise, to our technology help desk, what we can do is have a look at that for you and see if there's something that's not quite tying up correctly. It might be, and I know this sounds a bit odd, we've had a couple of these, when people have logged out and the computer's recached and they've logged back in, it seems to have resolved a couple of these issues that we've had on filters. So it might be worth giving that a go and see if it works. And if it doesn't, by all means, drop us an email and one of the team will get onto that for you and have a look.
Okay. Yeah, I've looked at it a couple of times. That I freshly looked in it as you put the filter on. I freshly logged in and went, "Am I just being daft here?" And they went, "No, literally, it's not there."
No worries. But yeah, if you don't mind screenshotting that and sending it in, that'll be great, and we can get that looked at for you.
Is that to the technology address that you've got there? Grassroots Technology.
Yeah, if you send it to grassrootstechnology@thefa.com.
Okay.
That'll be great. So on your filters, the other thing you'll see that's new and won't quite work and tie up for this season is this transfers tab that you've got at the top there next to clear filters. And one of the biggest things that we had in terms of feedback from leagues was it was really difficult to sort of look back on transfers and see different bits and pieces. So one thing we've created immediately is the option to see all of the transfers specifically. And again, in the status, if you selected all of your players, all of your approved and rejected, it would bring up all of those potential transfers that you've had. But the other thing we're looking to do prior to next season is offer the opportunity of a league export that gives you just effectively a transfer report. So at the moment we have got an export, but it's of all the players, and you have to do a bit of digging around. So we're hoping for next season to have for you the opportunity to do effectively a transfer report. So if your registration secretary, or for example your treasurer, if you charge per transfer, you'll be able to hopefully get that information nice and swiftly on a particular date to get that to the relevant officer to do what they need to do. So that is a change. A lot of the questions we've had in have been around, when I select transfer, it doesn't show everything from back in September, October, etc. And that will be because it will show currently what we've had since we went live on the system. So from next season, that will be a full season for you, whereas this season it won't show you everything you're expecting. So if we go back to the All Players tab now, just a couple of things to have a look at. So you've got your download headshots in the top right hand corner. So for those of you that potentially use an ID system and don't use the squad lists on whole game system, and I'm going to ask Alistair not to press this button because it will take her forever to get you all the headshots, as other people are online as well. I say forever, a couple of minutes, but depending how many. What this will do is it will tell you who's generating the report and when it is. And what we've done is we've set up an auditing system in the background, so we get an audit history of who's downloading information, etc. Because it's quite important to know, especially when we come to the league export, where that information's going, because we've got lots of sensitive information on there. So don't be afraid when that comes down. It will just automatically tell you it's you downloading it on a particular date. And that's just monitored in the background. So that's your headshots for your photos. And whilst we're talking about photos, there have been a few issues, and I know they've been reported by a few that there's missing photos, and the team are currently working on that. We're down to the last batch, which we're hoping will be done by the end of this week. Before this weekend is the fingers crossed hope. I would love to say to you, as I always say on these calls, that it definitely will be, but because it's out of my hands, I will say that is the hope, that ahead of this weekend, all of those missing photos will be there. The other slight difference from a photo perspective, whilst we're talking photos, from a club perspective, is previously we could upload pictures of penguins, landscapes, and all sorts of different bits and pieces. And sadly, people did that on the odd occasion, purely by accident, sent it through to the league, and it would get rejected. What the current system does now is it actually looks for sort of a head and shoulders of an individual. So it won't accept those sorts of photos. So hopefully, in terms of the photos you're getting, they should be head and shoulders of an individual, and they'll be rejected if there's anything else and it doesn't quite meet the criteria. So we're hoping that that will save a little bit of time across the country, across the 950,000 leagues. I'm sure there were, even if there were 10 per league, that's a lot of registrations that need manual intervention. So hopefully we can reduce that number by a considerable margin. The export function that we've got on this system is slightly different, again, to the previous system. And when you export, it will give you a message to say exporting might take slightly longer because we're in beta mode. And all beta mode means is basically the system isn't finished and we're constantly adding bits and pieces to it. So it's not a finished product. So once you tick and check that confirm beta acknowledgement at the bottom of the screen there, it will allow you to click on next. And then it will give you a league download of your players that are connected to the league. So what that will then do, and slightly different to previously again, is it will give you a little more information than just the player information. So you might start to see on there, and this is progressing as we speak, things like parental details, emergency contact, etc. So we're currently going through a process at the moment of reviewing how that looks from a league perspective, and we will effectively allow the opportunity for the league to take as much data down as possible that might be useful for their competition. And certainly the more the clubs put in, hopefully we can allow you to access that information. So certainly worth having a look at your league download if you haven't already, just to see what's available to you in there. And I see Tony's popped a message in there about the sensitivity of the passport application process. It's not quite that sensitive. Sadly, it's not that powerful, but it will basically look for head and shoulders shot. It won't start doing things as some leagues like of a white background rather than standing in front of a tree at training or whatever the case may be. It simply is a headshot and looking sort of for facial features, etc.
Ash, if you like, I've downloaded a report for our Barks and Bucks demo league, which only has one player in it.
That'll be perfect. If you don't mind sharing that, mate, that'd be great.
Download is slightly quicker, but just to give an example of the kind of detail that's on there.
No worries. So the good thing is on the download now is, whereas before on whole game system, we used to sort of often get the phrase, I went and made my dinner and came back and it was still going. We have had leagues of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 players that is downloading in a matter of a couple of seconds. Some of the larger leagues with 13, 15,000 players, we're looking at 18, 20 seconds, which for that amount of players and number of registrations, hopefully is seen as a huge benefit compared to what we previously had. And you'll see on here that at the top of the screen, it gives you a bit of information. This is really important because we need to make sure that when this data's pulled from the system, whether it's stored digitally, whether it's printed, etc., that it's destroyed appropriately is probably the best way to put it. So that message will pop up at the top as a warning, nothing to worry about, more of a warning. And then you'll see as we scroll across the screen, the main screen there, you get all of what you used to, but as you scroll across, you've got things like other clubs, type of consent given, and when you've got a youth player, what the hope is that what we'll be able to do is share a bit more information about that player, connected individuals and so on. So watch this space as the download and export develops. There is a bit more information on there than there was previously, and we're doing what we can with the legal team to make sure that we give you as much as we can do from that perspective too. So that's a bit about the export and the headshots. The final thing I just want to cover is down the left-hand side. We've had quite a lot of questions about why can't I click on my dashboard, my competition, teams, officials, etc. This is the first chunk of the competition portal, and it's exactly the same in the club portal. And something I'll talk about shortly about where we're going is some of these other functions will become available in time to come. So my competition, for example, one of the things that we're looking at the moment, and it will come for clubs first, is the ability to put a bit of information on there about yourself, website potentially, sort of social medias, etc., and a bit of information that will then feed through to other systems, such as Find Football from a club perspective. So if they do want to advertise themselves, that is going to become available very shortly. And likewise for a competition, that's the sort of thing we're looking at for a league in the future as well, is can a league put on there, we're looking for new teams in these age groups, we come and join us, etc. So you're advertising in a fashion that we're not going and nabbing other people's clubs and teams, but actually if a new club comes into the county, they've got the option to have a look through and see where there might be football available for them. So those features will become available in due course, and a lot more different options will then start to follow for you. So I'm going to hand back to Alistair for there. That's a brief overview and look at the comps portal. And as I say, we will share the recording for you. So anybody, whether it's you guys or other league officers, you can share it with everybody to see a full demo, start to finish, of what it looks like.
Perfect. Thanks, Ash. Just before I stop sharing the screen, I was just going to share a couple of bits of feedback or things that popped in my head as we've been running through that, just kind of common queries that come up over the first few weeks. At the moment, it will show if a player is suspended down the column in the right-hand side, but it will not give you suspension details. Again, that is in anticipation of further functionality coming on in the future. So at the moment, although it may give you an exclamation mark or just tell you that the player is suspended, you won't be able to click in that to find any details. You still need to go through the league statement for that information. The second query that's come up quite a few times already, particularly around transfers, has been that a club's told a league that they have submitted a transfer, but the league's not able to see it in the competition portal. What's tended to happen here is that the club haven't actually completed all parts that they need to do for the registration, and the club portal looks pretty much identical to the competition one, and the best thing to do in that case would probably be to get them to go log on to the club portal and go to the pending actions. They will see they need 4 ticks in order to be able to submit a registration through to the league. Chances are one of those 4 pieces of information will be missing, and they just need to complete that in order to submit the registration formally through to yourselves for approval. Right, I am going to somehow work out how I can go back to the presentation. If you bear with me for 1 second. There we go, League Forum. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Sorry, bear with me. I think I just shared the wrong one. Right. Ash, can you give me a thumbs up or just confirm that you can now see the presentation again?
Yeah, got that on screen, mate.
Perfect. I'm going to ask you then just to fill in around the technology roadmap. We've kind of trailed a couple of things as to what's going to be coming, but if you're happy to give a bit more information on that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, no worries, not a problem. So, as we mentioned, a few new features are going to come, but there's also some new modules that are going to come along as well. So, as we transition from whole game system to the new portals, it's not going to be a one season, turn one off, turn the next one on. So, you'll start to see the tabs down the left-hand side in whole game will start to disappear, and things will start to come across to the new portals at relevant times. So something that is being worked on at the moment is the accreditation side. So Charter Standard, as it's called, is sort of having a bit of a rebrand and a mock-up. So it's going to turn over to FA accreditation, and there are more details coming about from county to you guys in due course and to the clubs. And that's one of the modules that's being worked on at the moment. So we're hoping to see later this year, early next year, the potential for the accreditation module to go live. And then the following ones from that are club affiliation and league sanction. So effectively, we're hoping by about 12 months, 18 months time within the new portals, we will have clubs, leagues, competitions, we will have accreditation, we'll have players, we'll have all these different modules, and then we can start to feed in things such as discipline and so on. So there is a timeline. As I explained to Alistair, it is extremely fluid. So 1 minute it seems to launch at one time, and then potentially things are moving quickly. So we might launch part of the modules earlier. So again, on the link that we shared earlier on with the forums on the Grassroots Technology page, one of the things we're popping on there is information about what's coming to keep people updated. So again, for you guys, keep a look on there, see what's coming. And again, feedback, any suggestions on that front. So the next ones starting to come through are going to be your accreditation, affiliation and sanction. Discipline, in all honesty, there's no timeline, but it's expected. It's unlikely to be the following season, so not next season, but the following season. We will have to wait and see, but I would expect discipline to probably be about 18 months, 2 years away, because once all of the other modules are working correctly and everything's brought in, we can then start to feed discipline into the system and take that away from whole game system. What that doesn't mean, and the reason I've put full time and match day on there, it doesn't mean we're just going to neglect the other products. So yes, there's a lot of work going into the new portals, and we've got competitions portal, club portal, we've got all sorts of different pieces going on. So there's one around pro game portal. We've also started to look at the refereeing side, so how we can tie that into all of this. And then updates are going to be made to full-time match day to start to replicate some of the availability that we've got in the new technology. So one of the things we always get asked, and I'm sure last time I came to a Barks and Bucks forum it was asked, so I'll chuck it out there now, is when are we going to get discipline feeding from the FA system into full-time? And the answer always used to be given, oh yeah, that will be soon. Well, soon's been a long time, because I've been around a while, as have many of you and Alistair, and it's never transitioned. And the reason behind that is the technology doesn't allow us to do it at present. When we move discipline over to the new portals, and we've got better, newer technology, that will hopefully give us the opportunity to then enhance things like matches feeding into full time and vice versa, linking up to discipline, and hopefully making sure the whole ecosystem works together. And the whole aim of all of these portals is to take away a lot of that manual labour, whether that's for you as league officers or the club officers, and try and make as much of it use of all the data that we've got and all the data points and link them together. So ideally there comes a time when these are up and running where we do something once and it feeds to the relevant places, rather than we need to do it 3 times in 3 different places, if that makes sense. So that's the ambition, and that's where we're moving to. You will have seen some updates on full time recently and match day, and you will have seen ongoing different bits and pieces around those. One of the major updates on full time that we're hoping is going to be available for you next season, and if you're a full time user, this is worth considering, is an opportunity for the referee to complete a referee report into the league via full time. So it'll be a very similar basis to the clubs. So there will be an FA section of some required information that referees need to put in on a standard basis across every competition. But then there'll be the opportunity for you as a league to potentially add, like you do in your league mark section for your clubs. You'll be able to do the same from a refereeing perspective as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that, because that is something that's been asked for quite a while and is now progressing quite nicely. So we're hopeful that ahead of next season kicking off, we will have that in place for you. And that then allows you, rather than somebody having to collate lots of Google forms or Excel spreadsheets or however the referee details are coming into you, hopefully it will make it a lot easier to track all of that information. Linking to that, one of the big questions we get asked by match officials is, can I report my discipline in there at the same time? And sadly, the answer at the moment is no, because whole game is still doing the discipline side. But the hope, again, moving forward, is that there will be one central place in time for the match officials to report. The relevant data will come through to you as a league. The discipline will go through to the county FA or the sanctioning authority for that competition on a discipline perspective. And it then again makes the referee's life a little easier, rather than having to log into 2 or 3 places. Similarly, for clubs and leagues, we can hopefully get everybody to log into one place and do the relevant things that they need for their role, and that then feeds to the relevant places. So it's an exciting time. Hopefully, if I'm able to come back and speak to you in maybe 12 months' time, we'll be able to see some really major updates and some progression. And then again, 2-3 years' time, I think it's really, really interesting to see where we'll be, and hopefully a lot better, and taking away a lot of that burden on you on the manual tasks that you do in your role with your competitions. So that's where we're at with those. I see a message has come into the chat around match day and how it displays information. So we have got recordings of match day webinars, and they're very obviously based around the club itself, because a league doesn't have access in there. But what we can do with you, Phil, is we can share a recording that you can have a peek through, and it will show you the screens that they see and effectively how they input that information. And then it feeds through to the league if you're using full time, for example. So we'll definitely share that with you and pop that in the chat, and then you can have a peek at that. And again, on our knowledge base, there's a big section on match day. So if you want to scroll through it, feel free to have a scroll through, and there's lots of good advice on there, screenshots, etc., and different articles on how you do the bits and pieces. So are there any questions before I hand back to Alistair? If so, by all means, drop them in the chat or pop your hand up and we can get them answered for you. I've sent everyone to sleep, I think, Al.
I can't see any, so I'm happy to crack on. But if you do have anything that pops in, feel free to drop it in the chat. And then once we're done on the next section, we can just come back and pick up any questions that you may have at that stage. One thing I would say as well is that with the whole transition and expansion of club and competitions portal, I'm in a fortunate position doing a lot of work with Ash as part of the working group on that. So if you have any feedback, if there's any functionality that you really want to see included, please let me know, and we'll for Ash know, and we'll keep pushing the FA to try and include it where it is technically possible for them to do so, and keep petitioning for those. Just going to, moving on, look at league sanctioning for next season. I appreciate we're just about getting our heads around coming back for the remainder of the 2021 season, and everything that's been up in the air and changed and been thrown at us over the last few weeks and months with COVID. But it's been a piece of work that we've been doing, just looking ahead at what's going to be happening next season, and we're beginning to get the questions in from clubs and leagues as well. So I thought it would be a good opportunity just to touch on some of that quickly. Able to confirm some of the key dates at this stage, although some of them are admittedly TBC. The first is that the player registration requirements that the league sets, that deadline has now been extended, so you have up until the 1st of June to make any changes to your player registration requirements ahead of next season. The one health check you always need to make with that is that as soon as you do make those changes, they become live. So if you're still accepting registrations for the 2021 season and you change the requirements now, any new players for this season will have to meet those new requirements. But you do have a little bit more time just to get those in. From a county point of view, we are now looking at opening club affiliation on the 1st of June and league sanctioning on the 1st of July. Those are still to be confirmed. There is a slight chance they may change. I'm pretty certain the club affiliation one will go ahead as the 1st of June. I know last year I think we got slightly delayed on the league sanctioning because we need to wait for the technology to kind of be activated by the FA. But all being well, 1st of June for clubs, 1st of July for leagues. And then the default at the moment is that the player registration window for every league will open on the 1st of July. However, once those new requirements are in place and the season rollover occurs at the beginning of June, you can go in and extend that if you wish through the player registration requirements. If you do have any questions or do have any issues, then drop me a message and we can kind of work through what that will look like. And I'm happy to set up some reminders to help leagues after 1st of June to make sure that you've got the correct date in there so you don't get players coming in too early. As with last season, we're not looking at having a deadline where late fees will be applied if clubs haven't submitted an affiliation. The deadline, as always, really is every team needs to be affiliated by the point it plays its first fixture. So that should be the key message that goes to all clubs, that team needs to be live and in the whole game system before their first fixture. But there won't be any late fees for the current season, or for the coming season, sorry. I'm going to touch briefly on the rule change process, just because that is something that's going on at the moment, and I know several leagues have been asking about. I just want to kind of recap what that process looks like to make sure there aren't any issues with new league rules being adopted, which clubs haven't had the opportunity to weigh in on or that haven't been sent through to the county. So the process for league rule changes is that, first of all, as the league, you will receive any proposals for changes. Now, there's three areas where those may come from. First is from the FA through changes to standard code. It's about this time each year that we start getting those coming through. I'm not aware of any at the moment. If there are going to be some, I'm hoping they will only be very minor ones. But as soon as we get any information around mandatory changes to the standard code, we'll forward those to leagues. League Management Committee can obviously make proposals for rule updates, and then member clubs can submit proposals as well. Once those have all come in, they go out to all the clubs to provide feedback, so they've got the opportunity to amend the wording if they want to, or propose any other kind of feedback or thoughts that should be considered by the league. Once that's come back, please send your rule changes to us to take a look over and sign off. It doesn't mean that they're approved at that stage. It still has to be voted on at the AGM. But the benefit of having it to come to the county first is that if, let's say, a club's put in a proposal which actually will go against the standard code or against FA requirements, we actually have the opportunity to feed that back to you at this point so that it doesn't go to an AGM and get voted on. It kind of helps the league save a little bit of face, because you don't want to be putting forward a proposal that would then get rejected by the county at a later date. And then finally, clubs are required to vote on any proposed rule changes at the AGM. And once you have those, please send an updated copy of the league rules to the county. put that in a slightly different format, in a little bit of a timetable, this is a good kind of reference just to put your deadlines in and then work backwards. So every league, in their rules, you will have a deadline for holding the AGM, and I fully appreciate some of those may have been extended this season if leagues are carrying on into June. But once you know the date of the AGM, 14 days before that, you have to give notice to the clubs of the date. And 28 days before the date of the AGM, you need to send your rule proposals to the County FA for feedback. So you can start working backwards on some of these timescales. You should also have within that big bulky League Rule 14, which talks all about rule changes and the AGM, have deadlines in there around proposals of new rules to be submitted by the clubs to the League Management Committee, deadline for them to then be circulated out to all clubs for feedback, and the deadline for that feedback to come back in. And when putting forward the rule changes, this is the kind of preferred and advised format. Under standard code, it is required that any rule changes should be in a format that shows the original wording, the proposed wording, who's put it forward, and an explanation. And just using a simple table such as this will allow that to be quite easy for anybody to understand what the changes are and why they've been proposed and who they've come from. So sanction requirements for next season, and this may well be teaching you all to suck eggs, because I know it's very much the same as it is every season, but it's always worth recapping. So stage one, sanction itself is broken down into 3 stages on whole game system. Stage 1 is very much just around that basic information. So it's the key committee members. We want to get confirmation that there aren't any changes, or for you to update any changes that have happened to the chair, the secretary, the treasurer, and the welfare officer. And also provide an updated copy of the league rules. That's really helpful for us, because if a league appeal does come in, or if a club contacts us with a general query around what the process is for something, we know that we've got a central reserve there with a bank of all of the league rules that we can access for the current season without having to go back and forth with yourselves to get copies of those. The second stage then of the sanction process is more documentation, I'm afraid. And as with last season, we're going to keep these mandatory going forward, because it's been a really useful tool for us to see the state of play across the county. So we're asking you once again to submit league accounts or profit and loss sheets, balance sheet for us. Copy of the AGM minutes from that season, so we know the kind of discussions or concerns that are being raised by clubs. And if you're not purchasing public liability through the county, a copy of your public liability certificate that shows you got coverage up to £10 million. The final stage is the constitution of divisions. Now, this is actually completed via the league structure tab now in whole game, where you can assign all of your clubs to the relevant division and make sure they're all set up correctly. Although we are asking, as before, that an electronic copy, Excel spreadsheet or something like that gets sent to the county. That just allows us, particularly for those leagues who integrate into full-time, gives us a chance to do a bit of a spot check and make sure all of that data is correct. Pretty certain these are going to be the fees for next season. They should get signed off by board tomorrow night. As with this year, league sanction cost itself will be £30. There have been some increases on insurance through Bluefin. Those are kind of mandated by Bluefin and passed down to us. So the general public liability, the county cover insurance, is now £30, which is up, I think, £4 from last year. And then county cover plus is £60. County cover plus is the one that provides additional legal coverage. So it includes coverage of legal fees if you do have to fight any cases, and includes coverage for any payouts that the league or an individual may have to pay. If you do want information on that, we'll be sending through the brochures in the next few weeks once we've received them from Bluefin. And confirmation, once again, that the league sanction number is only provided by the system when the application is approved. So all 3 stages have been signed off, and the league sanction has been paid. For those leagues that do integrate into full-time, I just want to run through what that process is. Part 1 is kind of the setup that needs to be done in order for us as the county to progress the integration. So in order for the application to go through, we need to make sure that the league has created all of their divisions and cups in the league structure tab on whole game. Teams have been assigned correctly. Any missing teams have been identified and added by the clubs. So this will be where clubs may have added additional teams as we're getting towards the end of the affiliation season, or where they've only originally signed up that they'd be entering, say, one under 14 team, and then they've actually want to enter two. That those missing teams are identified, and we get them added by the club to make sure every single team across the county is fully affiliated. And then the league sanction is completed, approved, and paid. Once that has happened, league needs to send a request to the county FA that we authorise the integration. It has to come through us first, so please don't go directly to the grassroots tech team to request the integration. Reason for that is we will complete a spot check of the teams and divisions. This is not going to be a thorough audit of every single team and division, but we will do spot checks to make sure it pretty much matches up. It is ultimately still the league's responsibility to make sure that that constitution of teams is correct. We just want to do a bit of a sanity check, for want of a better term, and make sure it looks correct. At that stage, we will request integration from the FA on the league's behalf, and the FA will complete the integration for us, at which point the league can complete or create the fixtures in full time. Now, Ash can probably provide a bit more information, but that integration should be between about 48 and 72 hours to go through. And this is, again, why we're looking to open club affiliation and league sanctioning as early as we are. Just means that we're not getting to the stage where actually we're looking to integrate the weekend before fixtures are due to be played, or we're getting pressure from leagues to integrate effectively overnight, which isn't actually practical from a technology point of view. So please put as much as it may be frustrating, if you put the legwork in earlier on in the summer and making sure all of the information is there in the background, once we actually get to the business end and trying to get all of the player registrations through, trying to get integration through, fixtures created, that will run as smoothly as possible if we have all of that information at the beginning of the summer. Quick word on team affiliations, because I know this is something that always crops up as to what the affiliation status is. Teams will show in the league structure and the player registration portal as soon as they are created. So that means when the club goes through their affiliation process, they add a team at that stage, or we add it on their behalf. It doesn't mean that the team itself is fully affiliated. It just means that at that early stage of the affiliation process, they've said we are going to be adding this additional team. However, the league can check the affiliation status via the affiliation filter in the teams tab. This is under the traditional whole game system. You can see that up in the top right hand corner, there's a drop down on the filters for affiliation, and you can set it by the different affiliation statuses. This shows it for the entire club, but if you then are concerned that there are clubs that haven't fully completed the affiliation process, let us know and we can confirm if they're individual teams which have completed it or whether it's a holder at an entire club level. Just going to touch on safeguarding requirements quickly, and this is for youth leagues. I'm only looking at a league perspective here. I'm not talking about within a club structure, but for youth leagues, there's a requirement that the 4 key officers must have completed the Safeguarding for Committee Members course, and that it's now within the last 5 years. So that has been extended once again. So only has to be renewed every 5 years. The first round of that first was introduced 4 years ago. So pretty much everybody should have an extra year's grace on that. If you do want to go ahead and take it again, or you do have new committee members that have joined, we'll be sending that link out again when we circulate the full affiliation and sanctioning pack. For Youth League welfare officers, in addition to the safeguarding for committee members, you will need a clear DBS, which has been issued in the last 3 years, subject to any extension due to COVID. Also need to have completed the Safeguarding Children workshop and the Welfare Officer workshop. If those aren't there, or you need to renew any one of those and aren't able to access them, or it's a new welfare officer that hasn't completed all of those, we can create county action plans. So you would get in touch with that with our DSO, Graham. That's it for a whistle-stop tour of the sanctioning requirements. So effectively goes on to a bit of a Q&A, open forum, call it what you will, if there's anything you want to pick our brains about. One thing I'm going to cover off quickly before we take any questions is, I know we've had quite a few leagues ask us what the arrangements are for this weekend with the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. So the FA is recommending that no football fixtures take place between 2:45 and 4:15 on Saturday. What that means is fixtures that are or were originally scheduled for between those times, the FA is recommending that they be rescheduled. So we're encouraging leagues to work with the clubs to identify an alternative kick-off time, whether that's bringing it forward to midday perhaps, or delaying fixtures until after 4:15, which you can get away with the light and so forth. Appreciate with everyone trying to cram a whole load of fixtures in at the moment, pitches will be pretty booked. So if clubs aren't able to agree an alternative time or an alternative venue, the league ultimately can make a decision on what happens to it, whether that is rescheduling the fixture for another weekend or another date if necessary. Certainly, we would hope, though, that the leagues would show a bit of discretion around whether they would sanction or penalise clubs if they're not able to move the kick-off time, given that it is quite short notice and it is something that's outside of their control. And any other circumstances, any other season, they may have been able to get another booking on the same pitch. But obviously, with everything that is going on at the moment between COVID and condensed bookings and player availability and first weekend the pubs are open, not all clubs may be in a position where they can change fixtures at this point in time. Right, on to the questions. I can see, Ash, there's a couple that have come through which I'm thinking may get passed over to yourself straight away.
Yep.
First one from Liz. Can we still use Teams to print off the team photo as the new system has such tiny photos?
So it's a good question around the new squad lists. We have asked for some updates to that. So should have probably mentioned it in the demo. So thank you for reminding me, Liz, because we did mention it in the training events with the clubs and leagues. We are trying to get the squad list updated similarly to the previous. So we see more players per page, slightly clearer picture, etc. So there is the ability currently, and on the knowledge base there is an article on it around getting your squad list from whole game. Ideally, by the time we get to next season, that won't be required and we can get the relevant updates made. But if a club does still try and run their squad list using their My Teams and My Clubs tab in whole game system, it will currently run the squad list. So we won't be turning that off at the present time on the basis of the squad list requirements for this season. So yes, you can indeed use whole game if that's a preference and the current squad list doesn't do what you need it to do to the end of this season.
Perfect, thank you. And then some fields in whole game never get passed to full-time, the full-time fixture secretary. Is there a reason why? I'm not sure, Richard, if you can confirm which fields don't get passed on, just to help clarify that. But actually, I don't know if you're able to provide a bit of update on that, or if you know which ones do map across and why some do and some don't.
We'd need a bit more information. So if you don't mind dropping that into us, Richard, we can certainly have a look. One of the differences between whole game system and full-time is the full-time fixtures role. If it is just a fixtures role and not a league admin role, they are limited as to what they can do on full-time. So in the security settings, quite deliberately, the different roles are set with different permissions. So it could be around the permissions, but if it is the fact that there's things that are not showing from whole game in full time that would be useful, again, if you can let us know which would be useful, and if there's particular fields, we can feed that back to the full time development team and say, for example, I know this one doesn't show, but the format of the team, so 5v5, 7v7, etc. If that would be useful and lots of leagues sort of voted for that as one of the enhancements ahead of other things, we can certainly put forward suggestions of any missing fields. So if you wanted to have a look through, Richard, and sort of see what you think might be useful, by all means let us know, and we can then feed that back and see what sort of feedback we get from other competitions as well.
Perfect, thank you, Ash. I can't see anything else in there. I was going to throw one that I think I've had come through actually from one of the leagues earlier this week. I believe that there's been some confusion over the consent for under 6, or the difference between under 16s and over 16s. I don't know if you're able to provide a bit of update on that one. Whether at what point a player provides their own email address and their own consent versus needing it from a parent.
Yeah, no worries. So it's currently set that under 16s require a parent or carer linked, and it will be their email that is assumed on the front of the email requirement. For a player that is 16 plus, they are legally allowed to consent from themselves and have an email address on their fan record. So if a player is 16 plus, the email address will go on their fan. The one crossover that we have got, and it happens quite regularly, and we've deliberately done this so we don't stop people playing football, is when somebody turns 16, if they turn 16 on the Saturday night, we're not going to stop them playing on the Sunday because there's not an email address on their fan. So effectively it assumes the email address for that season. So if I'm 15 at the beginning of the season, my parent is linked to me, that's absolutely fine. When I come to re-register, once I've turned 16, whether that's registering to a new club or doing a transfer, or whether it's the following season, it's at that point that I have to provide the email address on my fan record to be able to be registered, transferred, etc.
Is there any provision in there if a parent doesn't want it to be their child's email address that's made public because they're still 16 to 18, they're still considered children?
So something they're looking at the moment, and it's not around whether they're the consideration of children or not, is whether there's the ability to add a parent carer to an over 16 and they remain there till they're 18. So something that is being considered at the moment by safeguarding and sort of the technology side is, yes, we will probably still require their email at 16 because that's legitimate, etc. However, it might be that the parent says mine is the primary email because I'm linked as a parent, and the child can say, yes, I'm happy for that until I'm 18. So they're looking around the logistics of how that would work. And if there is any update or they do decide to change it from 16, as soon as we know anything, of course, we'll let everybody know. But that's as it stands at present.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I can't see any more questions in the chat, so I'm happy to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. It's really, really appreciated you giving up another evening of your time to join us. I hope you found it useful. I hope the demonstration particularly has helped explain some of the new functionality of the club and competitions portal and some of the enhancements that the FA have put in there. If you do have any questions about any of the functionality, drop us an email at the county. If we're not able to answer it, we'll probably bug Ash and hope that he can do it for us. And I just want to say as well, thank you very much again to Ash for joining us. I know that the Grassroots Tech team are inundated with requests like these. They're obviously running their own training sessions nationally on a weekly basis. So really appreciate you giving up your time to come and join us here at Barks and Bucks.
No worries. Nice to see everybody and wish you well for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much. Well, have a good enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will speak to you soon.